It can be argued that the most captivating wrestler over the last 20 years was the worst wrestler in the last 20 years. In terms of technique, New Jack was one of the worst in the industry. He belonged in small-town gyms wrestling in front of only dozens of fans. Eventually the world would catch up to him and he would end up at the bottom of the circuit. But for a time in the late 90s, there was one wrestler that fans were mesmerized by: New Jack. New Jack was a one-trick pony, but he took that one trick and diversified it in the most violent ways. He was a hardcore wrestler with a forehead covered with a permanent layer of scar tissue from hundreds of razor blade cuts, but he was not like the other hardcore wrestlers. New Jack was a masochist that preferred random weapons to power bombs and pile drivers. Stop signs, barbed wire, and death-defying leaps were par for the course. When natural-born killers blared over the loudspeakers in the arena, New Jack had two objectives: entertain and endure, but mostly the former. There are many moments in New Jack's career that stand out. Pay-per-view matches and sold-out arenas at the height of ECW, multiple appearances on TNA, a match against William Lane where New Jack stabbed his opponent 14 times. After the match, he was arrested and charged with aggravated battery. Lane dropped the charges when New Jack agreed to train him. After being released, New Jack skipped town and never went back to Florida. In his defense, New Jack claims he only stabbed Lane 9 times. You can review the video on YouTube yourself. It looks a lot like 14. As crazy as that sounds, it's not the worst match of New Jack's career. In an ECW pay-per-view, New Jack wrestled Vic Grimes. The highlight of the match was supposed to be Vic and New Jack crashing 20 feet from painter scaffolding through a table. For listeners that are not extreme wrestling fans, there is no explanation of why painter scaffolding would be just set off to the side. There weren't any renovations occurring in Danbury, Connecticut arena that required scaffolding. Tables, barbaric weapons, scaffolding, they just seem to be lying around at these wrestling events. It's almost as if these inanimate objects bought tickets to attend the event like fans. What happens next is referred to as the Danbury Fall. Once atop the scaffolding, Vic Grimes got scared, rightfully so, but not New Jack. It was a pay-per-view. The scaffolding was only feet away from throngs of screaming fans. They roared as New Jack grabbed onto Vic. New Jack looked over his shoulder to the table below. He took a step back and pulled Vic Grimes off the scaffolding with him. As they fell, they missed the table and landed directly on concrete. But it's worse. New Jack had to pull Vic off the scaffolding. This meant New Jack would fall first. Vic landed second, but on top of New Jack's head. Brain fluid ran from New Jack's ears and nose. He suffered brain damage, and to this day is permanently blind in his right eye. For most, that would be it. For New Jack, the show goes on. Entertain and endure. As if it were a real fight, there was a rematch. This time, 20 feet wasn't high enough. It would be 40 feet, and New Jack would get to toss Vic off the scaffolding for revenge. But this wasn't fake revenge. It was real. The two wrestlers stood upon the scaffolding high above the ring. Beneath the scaffolding, a stack of tables designed to break Vic's fall. Vic was once again scared, and again rightfully so. New Jack was crazy. Why the hell he was still wrestling or even alive was a mystery to everyone. Had Vic been able to forget the past, he still could not trust New Jack. New Jack had just shot him with a real taser. As New Jack grabbed Vic, he told him, "Don't worry, I gotcha." New Jack then tossed Vic off the 40-foot scaffolding, but he tossed him too hard. Vic overshot all but one table and fell directly feet first onto the ring. The impact somersaulted his body over the ropes and onto the floor. Vic was lucky to only suffer a broken ankle. He probably should have been dead. At least that's what New Jack wanted. It was intentional. New Jack hoped that Vic would hit the ring post and die, or suffer a serious injury. A rematch as if it were real? It is real. I am at Race for the Prize, or some call me Mr. Jackson at thehistorypodcast.blogspot.com. Please follow us, subscribe to our podcast. We appreciate it. And please join me again for more in our crazy wrestling series.